Welcome back, learner. Today, we are tracing a logical line that starts with something as mundane as, I don't know, a wooden pencil sitting on a desk.
Right.
And it ends with, get this, Sigmund Freud telepathically commanding a man in a trance to pluck hairs from Albert Einstein's beard.
Yeah, it's quite the journey. So we're dissecting a text today by an author named Zhuo Feng,
Uh-huh.
and it's titled The 8 Logical Inferences That Prove the Existence of the Greatest Creator.
That is a hefty title.
It really is. But the goal here is to unpack these 8 distinct logical steps, to see exactly how this author attempts to construct a bridge.
Right, a bridge from what?
From completely observable everyday physical phenomena.
Like the pencil.
Exactly, all the way up to this massive telepathically linked cosmic hierarchy.
Okay, let's unpack this, because reading through the source material, it feels a lot like reverse engineering a massive, infinitely complex clock.
That's a really good analogy.
Right. Like, the author isn't just staring at the hands of the clock and marveling at the time. He's trying to logically trace every single gear,
Yeah.
every mainspring, every tiny metallic vibration, all the way back to an ultimate original clockmaker. And he asks you to start by just agreeing on 2 very basic, seemingly undeniable physical observations.
Right, which are his first 2 inferences. So inference 1 is that everything has a source, and inference 2 is that everything is in motion.
Okay, so start with the source part.
Well, he anchors this in geography first. He talks about the Amazon River, the mighty Nile, the Yangtze.
They don't just magically appear?
Exactly. They have head streams. Ocean currents have distinct thermal and saline sources.
Makes sense.
Then he scales that concept down to manufactured goods, the shoes on your feet, the refrigerator in your kitchen, a commercial airliner flying from LA to Paris.
So everything human-made.
Yeah. Every single object created by humanity has a starting point in a factory,
Yeah.
or even just in a mind. Like, nothing just pops into existence unprompted.
And then he pairs that origin principle with the concept of perpetual motion,
Or
right?
it does.
And he uses some incredibly poetic imagery for this part.
Yeah.
Like, he describes mountains rotating along with the earth, winds dancing across the plains.
Yeah, the wind dancing is a great visual.
And he even frames the biological aging process, like black hair at dawn turning white at dusk, as a fundamental form of kinetic change.
Which is, well, he's setting a trap here in a philosophical sense.
How so?
He wants to establish that the universe is this dynamic, moving system where absolutely nothing is static and everything comes from somewhere else.
Got it.
So once he has you nodding along to the idea that rivers have sources and clouds move across the sky, he pivots.
He pivots to the physics.
Exactly, the underlying physics governing all this movement.
Yeah, and I found myself putting up a bit of a mental guardrail here.
Really?
Why? Because as he builds this argument, he's heavily leaning on standard textbook principles of physics, specifically, the law of energy conservation.
He's invoking this well-established idea that there's no such thing as a perpetual motion machine.
Which is true.
Right. But if science says an object at rest stays at rest unless acted upon by an outside force,
Yeah.
and an object in motion needs a force to keep it moving against friction,
Uh-huh.
is the author simply taking that accepted scientific law and using it as a philosophical Trojan horse?
He actually names the law of energy conservation directly to make this exact pivot. This brings us to his third inference.
Which is?
Image and energy. So he argues that everything in existence has an image or, a fundamental structure.
Like a blueprint.
Exactly.
Yeah.
For living things, that structure is determined by complex genetics and DNA. For non-living things, it's determined by atomic and molecular bonds.
Like how water behaves differently from oil just because its microscopic structure is different.
Right. But, and here's the key, having a structure is only half the equation. A structure requires an active input of energy to transition from an idea into a reality. Yeah, because a blueprint sitting on a drafting table isn't a building. It's just potential.
That's his prime example, the construction of a house.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he says you can imagine the most intricate, structurally sound house in your brain. You can draw schematic diagrams down to the millimeter.
Sure.
But without the massive input of mechanical energy, human labor, the friction of saws cutting wood, the kinetic force of hammers driving nails,
The house doesn't get built.
that structure remains an illusion. You need energy to manifest structure into tangible reality.
That makes total sense.
He gives other examples too. A seed contains the structural blueprint of a massive oak tree, but it requires the external energy of soil nutrients and solar radiation to grow.
Or a light bulb. It has the mechanical structure to produce illumination, but it just sits in darkness until electrical energy flows through it.
Exactly. So if every single thing in the physical universe requires an input of energy to move, to grow, or simply to exist,
And we've already established there are no perpetual motion machines constantly generating free power.
then you inevitably hit a wall.
The ultimate thermodynamic wall.
Yes. If you trace the chain of energy backward, it always requires a predecessor.
Right, like the rain falling on your roof comes from heavy clouds,
And those clouds were gathered by atmospheric winds,
which were generated by temperature differentials.
which are dictated by the Earth's rotation and the solar radiation from the sun. It just keeps going back.
So where does it stop?
Well, the author argues that because of the law of energy conservation, if you rewind the tape of the universe all the way to the absolute beginning,
Yeah.
there must be an initial massive push of energy that is not constrained or preceded by any other physical forces.
A prime mover.
Exactly. He defines this unconstrained primordial spark of energy as the greatest creator.
Wow. Okay, so if the universe requires this unconstrained initial push just to get the gears turning, what dictates the trajectory of those gears once they're actually in motion?
What do you mean?
Well, if you just have energy bouncing around, that's just chaos,
Yeah.
right? We have to figure out how these moving physical elements interact with each other over billions of years without just shaking the clock apart.
Ah, right. And this is where the author introduces inference 4, which states that every effect has a cause.
Okay, cause and effect. Classic.
Right, but he casts a staggeringly wide net to demonstrate that absolutely nothing escapes this connective tissue.
So we start small.
Yeah, at the micro level first, like if you wake up with a severe headache, it isn't a random glitch in the universe.
There's a physiological cause.
Yeah.
Dehydration, stress, maybe a change in barometric pressure.
Exactly. Then he scales up to the macro level, looking at weather events like typhoons and tornadoes, which are just dramatic effects of colliding atmospheric causes.
And then he goes bigger.
He applies this to human history.
Yeah, the historical examples really drive the scale of his argument home because he looks at the sinking of the Titanic, the catastrophic global events of World War II, and even the slow, inevitable fall of ancient, powerful civilizations like the Maya and Babylon.
Because history doesn't happen in a vacuum. He
Yeah.
argues the Titanic didn't sink just because it hit an iceberg.
Right. It sank because of a massive chain of preceding causes.
Exactly. The metallurgical flaws in the rivets, the speed dictated by the captain, the lack of binoculars in the crow's nest, the atmospheric conditions hiding the ice.
They're all interconnected results of preceding actions.
And if you follow that chain of cause and effect backward, past human history, past the birth of the Earth, past the violent formation of the Milky Way galaxy itself.
You arrive at the singular first cause of all these interconnected dominoes.
Yep. And for the author, that first cause is, once again, the greatest creator.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting because inference 5 takes a sudden, sharp turn away from the cold mechanics of physics and history and dives straight into purpose.
Oh yeah, it shifts gears entirely.
The worldview presented in the text suddenly becomes intensely anthropocentric, like the entire universe is reframed around humanity.
Right. The author states unequivocally that everything has a specific purpose for its existence, and it all flows upward toward us.
Give me an example.
Well, microorganisms exist to break down matter and enrich the soil.
Right.
The enriched soil's purpose is to nourish plant life. The flora exists to feed insects and herbivores.
So the entire sum of the plant and animal kingdoms operates to maintain a biosphere that basically just serves human beings.
Exactly. And he doesn't shy away from the less pleasant aspects of nature either.
Oh, I noticed that. He explicitly states that flies, mosquitoes, deadly viruses, and even the ozone layer high above the Earth all ultimately exist to serve or maintain the precarious balance of humanity.
Yeah, even the celestial bodies aren't exempt. The text claims the sun, the moon, and the gravitational dance of the entire solar system have a singular purpose.
To serve the Earth.
And the Earth's purpose is to serve us. We are the ultimate beneficiaries of this cosmic machinery.
But, I mean, think about what happens when you reach the absolute top of a food chain. As humans, we raise farm animals for highly specific purpose.
We do.
We cultivate massive fields of crops with a clear caloric goal in mind. We don't spend billions of dollars building orbital spaceships for no reason.
Every major action we take has intent.
Right. So the author is forcing a rather profound logical leap here. If literally every microbe, every weather pattern, and every star in the universe serves us, Who do we serve?
That is the big question.
Are we merely the supreme idle enjoyers of the universe, or do we have a job to do? Like, are we essentially being farmed by something larger?
Well, the author provides a very rigid answer to that. He says the overarching purpose of human existence is to serve the greatest creator.
Just to serve.
Yeah, and he argues that humans are actually the only creatures in the entire universe who seem deeply confused about their own purpose.
That's a funny way to look at it.
Right. He says a tree doesn't wonder why it grows leaves, it just performs its function. Humans suffer existential dread because we lack the ultimate cosmic perspective.
We don't have the instruction manual.
Exactly. And according to the text, throughout all of human history, only a handful of figures possess the clarity to truly understand this purpose.
Who does he name?
He specifically names Jesus and Buddha as figures who deeply knew the Creator,
Okay.
while Muhammad and Laozi are credited with having a profound, if perhaps slightly different, understanding of this ultimate duty.
Bringing major historical and religious figures together under one unifying functional theory of purpose is, well, it's a bold narrative move.
Definitely.
But if the fundamental human job description is simply to serve this ultimate creator, how does the universe measure our performance?
Performance metrics.
Yeah. I mean, if billions of people are just wandering around trying to serve the creator without a manual, it sounds like a recipe for absolute chaos.
But the text argues the universe is completely devoid of chaos.
It is.
Yeah, it operates on a terrifyingly precise spreadsheet, which brings us into the mechanics of inferences 6 and 7.
The architecture of the universe.
Exactly. Inference 6 states that life is graded. Everything, without exception, operates on a strict, measurable hierarchy.
And he even extends this grading system to inanimate objects, right?
He does.
Like he categorizes stones, arguing that the intense pressurized structure of a diamond gives it a higher functional grade than a piece of gravel.
Right, but the real core of this inference is dedicated to the categorization of humanity.
The 18 grades.
Yes. The author claims human beings are fundamentally divided into 18 distinct spiritual grades based on their nature, their actions, and their resonance with cosmic order.
So who's at the top?
Grade 1 is the absolute highest echelon of humanity, reserved for those previously mentioned figures.
Jesus and Buddha.
Right.
Because they figured out the purpose, so they sit at the top of the human ladder.
Exactly. Moving down the scale, at grade 4, you find the brilliant, paradigm-shifting minds of history, figures like Beethoven and Einstein.
Okay, so artists and scientists.
Yeah, their ability to organize sound into transcendent music or conceptualize the fabric of space-time that elevates their spiritual grade.
And what about the rest of us?
By the time you reach the vast majority of the global population, the ordinary people simply living their day-to-day lives, you're looking at grade 12.
Okay, we need to pause and examine the strangest detail in this entire section.
Oh, I know what you're going to say.
Because when the author is listing out these 18 grades, he doesn't just stick to historical figures. He explicitly assigns spiritual rankings to fictional characters.
He really does.
He states that Romeo and Juliet, the star-crossed lovers from Shakespeare's play, sit at grade 11.
Yeah.
And he places Shylock, the antagonist from The Merchant of Venice, at grade 14.
It's wild.
What does it actually mean for a philosopher to rank a fictional character on the same literal life scale as Albert Einstein? It suggests that archetypes, or ideas born entirely from human imagination, possess a literal, functional life within the universe.
It is a massive blurring of the lines between material reality and conceptual reality.
Seriously.
Within the logic of this text, if an idea, a story, or a character is potent enough to survive for centuries, heavily influencing human thought, emotion, and culture, it's performing work.
So it's shaping the physical world by shaping human actions.
Exactly. Therefore, it has a functional life within the cosmic hierarchy. And it's vital to note that this 18-tier human hierarchy is just one small segment of a much larger cosmic staircase.
The human ladder is just a few rungs in the middle.
Yes. The grand scale starts at the absolute bottom with basic elemental life forms enduring in molten lava and flames.
Okay.
It moves up through the intricate layers of the plant and animal kingdoms, reaches humanity, and then it pierces the veil of the physical world entirely.
It keeps going up.
It continues upward into unseen, ethereal realms populated by celestial beings, then Buddhas, then various strata of gods, until it finally culminates with the greatest creator residing in a dimension he terms the zero world.
Man, if you have a cosmic ladder stretching from microscopic life in a volcano all the way up to an omnipotent creator in the zero world, You need an incredible amount of structural integrity to keep it from collapsing under its own weight.
And that structural integrity is, inference 7, order.
The order.
The entire hierarchy is maintained by an unbreakable universal order. The author uses human societal structures to illustrate this. He points out that a functional country can only have one president or prime minister at a time.
Because if two leaders hold equal power, the nation fractures.
Right. But he also points to biological traffic rules. The life cycle itself, specifically the inevitability of death, is a prime example of cosmic order.
How so?
He notes that no matter how much wealth, power, or influence a grade 4 or a grade 12 human hoards, they cannot subjectively will themselves out of dying.
So death isn't a tragedy in this system?
No, it's the necessary order that clears the path for the next generation, preventing the biological system from crashing.
That makes sense.
The rule for navigating this ladder is straightforward. Conforming your life to this cosmic order naturally moves your soul upward. Defying the order, acting selfishly or destructively, drags you down to the lower rungs.
Okay, so we've established a rigid hierarchy and the unbreakable rules governing it. But the lingering question is logistics.
Logistics, yeah.
How does the CEO at the very top, the greatest creator in the zero world, actually enforce this order? How does an entity in a higher dimension communicate with a grade 12 ordinary person, a grade 4 theoretical physicist, or, I don't know, a field of wheat?
Well, this leads us to the eighth and, frankly, most mind-bending inference in the text.
The telepathy.
The assertion of a universal, invisible web of telepathy. Inference 8 posits that everything is interconnected through reaction.
Reaction to what?
The text argues that absolutely every entity in the universe senses and responds to external stimuli. Now, explicit stimuli are easy to understand.
Like you smell smoke, your brain registers danger, and your heart rate spikes.
Right. Or you touch a hot stove, your nerves fire, and you pull your hand back. But the author's focus is almost entirely on the realm of implicit stimuli.
And he defines these implicit stimuli as thought waves, biological waves, same frequency waves, and subconscious commands.
Exactly.
It's the premise that our brains and our very cells are constantly reacting to invisible, non-physical forces bombarding us from higher tiers of the hierarchy.
What's fascinating here is how he uses a mix of literature and alleged historical experiments to prove this subconscious sensing.
Oh, the stories in this section are incredible.
They are. He pulls from Daniel Defoe's Robinson Crusoe.
Right.
Crusoe experiences a sudden, completely inexplicable aversion to boarding two different ships that were meant to take him back to England.
He had no logical reason to fear the voyage.
None. But he felt this intense, paralyzing internal resistance. And both of those specific ships subsequently sank or were captured.
He points to the classic Chinese novel Water Margin as well, highlighting the character Lin Chong. Lin Chong avoids a gruesome death in a blizzard through a series of actions that appear to be pure coincidence, but the text reframes them as a subconscious biological response to impending danger, like the character's brain was receiving a warning signal he couldn't consciously hear.
And to bolster the literary examples, the author introduces what he frames as scientific evidence of these biological waves.
The snails.
The snails. He recounts an experiment involving 50 snails. The snails were paired off. One snail from each pair was transported across the Atlantic to the U.S., while its partner remained in a lab in Paris.
Okay.
When researchers in Paris administered an electric shock to their snails,
the corresponding partner snails in the U.S. exhibited a visible physical reaction to an electric shock at the exact same moment.
Despite being an ocean away and completely untouched.
Think of it like a massive, invisible Wi-Fi network blanketing the universe.
Oh, that's a good way to picture it.
Right. In this analogy, lower-grade humans, animals, and plants are like basic smart home IoT devices. We all have internal radio antennas, what we casually call intuition or gut feelings.
Yeah.
Those moments when the hair on the back of your neck stands up are actually our biological antennas tuning into invisible frequency broadcasts or firmware updates from higher life forms.
We don't know why we are reacting.
We just execute the command?
Exactly. And the author claims that certain individuals throughout history have figured out how to consciously hijack these frequencies.
Which brings us to the animal trainer.
Yes, Duluth. He supposedly possessed the ability to mentally command animals without any physical or vocal cues.
Not at all.
None. During one demonstration, he locked eyes with a dog and secretly, entirely in his own mind, commanded the animal to walk over to a piano and press only the white keys with its paws.
And the dog just did it.
The dog immediately performed the exact action.
And the text insists this phenomenon isn't limited to crossing the species barrier from human to animal, right?
Right, because a researcher named Kerensky openly doubted Dulof's abilities and challenged the trainer to use mental suggestion on him.
Bold move.
Dulof agreed. He wrote a short sentence on a piece of paper, folded it, and simply stared intensely at the researcher.
And then?
After a few moments, the researcher absentmindedly raised his hand and scratched behind his right ear. Dulof handed him the folded paper. It read, "Scratch behind your right ear."
That is wild.
But these smaller examples set the stage for the ultimate display of this telepathic web. Which brings us to the story you teased at the very beginning of our deep dive.
Yes.
The author recounts a dinner party in Vienna attended by Wolf Mason, a highly renowned psychic of the era.
But it's not just any dinner party. It is taking place at the home of Albert Einstein, and Sigmund Freud is sitting at the table.
Such a crazy gathering. The text claims that during the evening, Freud decides to conduct a silent, spontaneous experiment. Without uttering a single syllable or making a gesture, Freud focuses his immense intellect and sends a concentrated telepathic command across the room directly into Mason's mind.
And Mason, acting as if he's in a sudden trance, stands up from the table.
Yeah.
He walks out of the dining room, goes into the bathroom, searches for and retrieves a pair of tweezers. He walks back into the dining room, approaches the greatest physicist of the 20th century, lifts Albert Einstein's chin, and meticulously plucks 3 hairs from his beard.
Unbelievable.
And then he turns and drops the hairs into Sigmund Freud's hand.
It is a profoundly bizarre anecdote, but the author leverages it to deliver his final, sweeping conclusion about how reality functions.
Which is?
If an animal trainer can subconsciously command a dog to play the piano, and if Sigmund Freud can mentally hijack another human being to assault Albert Einstein's facial hair,
then this is the fundamental operating system of the entire universe.
Exactly. Lower life forms are perpetually subconsciously executing the implicit commands of higher life forms. A blade of glass takes orders from the insects. The insects are shaped by the birds.
The animals take orders from humans.
Humans are subtly directed by the thought waves of celestial beings who are organized by Buddhas who execute the will of the gods.
And the gods themselves are ultimately just taking orders from the greatest creator. It is one unbroken, cascading chain of telepathic command echoing downward from the zero world all the way into the roots of a tree.
The ultimate source of all physical stimuli, the final endpoint of every energetic wave, and the anchor of all interconnectedness is the creator.
Looking back at the massive philosophical distance we just covered, starting with the observable physics of river currents and the conservation of kinetic energy, and ending with the invisible telepathic plucking of Einstein's beard.
It's a lot.
It is a tremendous amount of conceptual architecture to process. So I want to summarize the framework we've explored and figure out what you, the learner listening to this, should ultimately take away from it.
Well, the author, Shuefeng, builds this incredibly comprehensive, airtight worldview by laying a foundation of basic, undeniable physical observations. Everything has a source, and everything requires energy to move.
Right.
He takes those physical laws and philosophically layers on the concepts of ultimate cause, effect, and a human-centric purpose.
And then structures all of that biological and historical chaos within a rigid 18-tier cosmic hierarchy of life.
Exactly. Finally, he binds the entire sprawling system together with an invisible, telepathic web of subconscious commands.
So what does this all mean? Obviously, the source material wades deep into theology, spirituality, and metaphysics, but looking at this text purely as a piece of literature and philosophy, what is the core utility of this deep dive?
I think this text stands as an absolute masterclass in human sense-making. It vividly demonstrates our deep, almost biological, psychological need to build comprehensive, unifying systems.
That makes sense of things.
Yeah. When we look at a universe that frequently feels violent, chaotic, random, and terrifying, humanity has an intense, driving desire to explain the unexplainable.
We want to find a pattern in the static.
We want to impose order on the chaos. And most importantly, we want to extract meaning from our existence. This text takes every loose, frightening thread of reality, from a sudden illness to a sinking ship to the formation of the Milky Way, and ties them all into one single, purposeful, highly organized knot.
It's the ultimate attempt to look at the terrifying expanse of space and boldly declare, nothing is an accident.
Exactly.
Before we go, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over on your own. Throughout this deep dive, we explored the text's claim that human purpose is to serve the Creator. much like farm animals serve our caloric needs.
Yeah.
We're supposedly just cogs in a massive hierarchy.
Right.
But think back to that incredibly strange detail we discussed in the third section. The text explicitly assigns spiritual functional grades to fictional characters.
Oh, yeah.
Romeo, Juliet, and Shylock were placed on the exact same cosmic ladder as Einstein and Beethoven. If human imagination is potent enough to conjure characters from thin air that literally occupy a functional tier in this grand cosmic hierarchy, could the very act of storytelling be our biological way of generating new life forms?
Wow.
By creating art, literature, and enduring archetypes, does our imagination make us miniature creators, quietly building our own universes within this vast system? It's something to think about the next time you open a book, hear a good story, or let your mind wander. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.